Hello, your villainy-hood asshole, Unhelpful Contrarian. So I want to talk about Fallout 4. Now, I realize I'm a bit late to the party discussing the game, since the game came out like 7 months ago. But you know what? Fuck it. Seeing the Metacritic score of an 87 with the Game Press shouting out with endless praise, saying it's the benchmark for future RPGs to generations to come, even IGN giving that game a 9.5 out of 10, too much gunplay. Is this game deserved of scores of 10 out of 10? And no, 9? No. 8? No. 7? Hell no. And I'll tell you why I think so in the preceding review. Now for some background information about myself. Now, when most people's first RPGs were the highly acclaimed Final Fantasy VI or the smash hit of Final Fantasy VII, me and my infinite amount of wisdom decided to first try out Final Fantasy X too. And after seeing the long introduction of whatever the frick that was, let's just say that I was almost put off RPGs almost indefinitely. It took many years before it even approached that genre again, but it wasn't for a little teaser trailer back in 2007 called Fallout 3 that piqued my curiosity. Look, I know when a brand new trailer comes out for a AAA game that we should be more skeptical than excited nowadays, especially now since most of the trailers are CGI and not actual in-game footage. I'm looking at you there. Titles like Halo ODST, Knights of the Old Republic, and especially the heart-wrenching trailer of Dead Island. When I saw that trailer, and it slowly started to pan out of the bus, and you hear the low-key music of I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire, and slowly you see the completely decimated city of Washington, and in the final moments of the trailer, you hear the narrator utter the famous words of, War never changes. And at that moment, I knew that this is the game I needed to get. When I was finally able to play Fallout 3 and play a numerous amount of hours of it, it became my favorite game of all time. With its unique blend of a 1950s futuristic sci-fi post-apocalyptic setting, and its dark humor best known in the previous installments of Fallout 1 and 2, and its rich lore detailing a what-if scenario after World War II of a highly technological advanced America and eventual downfall with the world-ending events of the Great War. Add to the addition of the vast amount of locations and landmarks that you can explore in the capital wasteland, with just me and my dog hunting down some super mutants, it single-handedly became one of the most magical gaming experiences that I ever had. 2 years later, Bethesda then lets Obsidian Entertainment make the next installment in the series, and when I got to play the game, I didn't like Fallout New Vegas. I goddamn worshipped the game. Fallout New Vegas virtually improved on everything of what made Fallout 3 fantastic and then some. Now you're probably wondering, what did Obsidian improve on from the formula from Fallout 3 to get so much praise from me? Well, I'll tell you in a moment, dear viewer. A robust crafted system where you can build and make your own weapons or modifications of your so choosing. A new cooking system where you can have a multitude of different recipes from just harvesting different types of plants and animals in the wasteland. Multiple factions you can build a reputation in that can change depending on which actions you do towards the other factions throughout the world, instead of the binary morality karma system or good or evil in Fallout 3. The full cast of companions all have their own interesting backgrounds and stories that they share with you along the way in your journeys, and an extensive side quest for each of them that was an absolute joy to play through. More and more I'm arguing the main story of the 3 big factions of NCR's Caesar's Legion and the House, all of their own interests and motives that comes together to really no clear-cut good or bad, but more about choosing the lesser of evils. Also, the fact that Obsidian made one of the best expansions in recent years for Fallout New Vegas, especially my all-time favorite one, Old World Blues, with its weird and quirky humor. Altogether, Fallout New Vegas was a truly great game that was a major step up from Fallout 3. Everything except its glitches. Now I know Obsidian's best known for its writings in its games. Examples include KOTOR 2, Neverwinter Nights 2, and even Alpha Protocol. But it'd be nice if the games weren't broken, unfinished, and downright unplayable at some moments. here's a tip, Obsidian. How about you get your game to work semi-functionally through Q&A so I don't need to worry that when I press the pause button on my controller, it doesn't fall apart like a Jenga puzzle. Yours truly, Unhelpful Contrarian. 5 years later, after the numerous amounts of articles and leaked information, we finally get the countdown trailer for Fallout 4. I was absolutely ecstatic. One of my favorite franchises of all time is getting a sequel. My hype was so high at that point it went up to the stratosphere. Finally, the long wait was over, spending many days imagining what joys I would have with the game when I was finally able to play it. When my clock struck midnight, I turned off the lights, shut the door, turn on the TV, and dedicate the next 2 weeks of my life playing Fallout 4. After much time spent playing Fallout 4, over a grand total of 55 hours, the word that can perfectly summarize my entire experience would be this.
Betrayal! What? Betrayal! Betrayed me!
What the frick, Bethesda? With all that hype you built up for in the E3 conference of 2015 and many interviews prior to that, this is the final product that we get in the end? Like, what did you do with all that money you made from Skyrim back in 2011 exactly? Hookers and blow? I had many disappointments in my relatively short existence living on this planet, but there's only 2 times in my life where I felt this sheer amount of remorse while playing a video game. The first one was Mass Effect 3. But like the fool that I was, I got the collector's edition on day 1. But as I sat there playing the game and finally seeing the end credits, I pondered and thought about the last 30 minutes that I played, and I realized that it was the most plot-filled, nonsensical character motives and one of the most hastily put together endings I've ever seen in a game franchise, and one of the worst ways to conclude a game series that completely destroyed all semblance of player choice. It was like that scene from Old Yeller, gun in hand, eyes welling up, having to put one of your favorite things down from your childhood. And they even made it worse with the response when the fans were heavily criticizing the horrendous ending they gave us. But BioWare defended this by saying they wanted to keep their artistic integrity? Sure.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore. What were you thinking? What was going on in your mind? Artistic integrity. Where did you come up with that? You're not artistic, and you have no integrity.
Well, but that didn't stop the game from getting 90s on Metacritic, right? And those so-called game journalists, I'm looking at you, IGN, with the hubris, called gamers entitled about their feelings and reactions to it. Well, I'm sorry. I forgot that, most people like an ending that makes actual coherent fucking sense. But wait, folks, the disappointment didn't stop there. Now, in 2013, I got to play BioShock Infinite. Now, even though it had a rather rocky development cycle and many game revisions, I was still excited for the game. When playing the next 2 hours at the beginning of the game, or first going to the lighthouse and then shooting up in the skies in Columbus for the first time, was visually breathtaking. The problems became apparent as you go deeper and deeper in the game. It turns out it was a banal gallery shooter going from destination point A to B with little to no improvements from the previous titles of the series, like BioShock 1 or even the cash grab of BioShock 2. Well, in terms of the gameplay department, that is. And the story did have some deep subject matters like racism, nationalism, and other weighty topics. In actuality, though, it's all set dressing. After the midpoint of the game, it decides to ditch all that and instead focus on a multi-dimensional alternate realities with an ending so profoundly confusing, Doctor Who could have given a better explanation of how that all wraps up in the end.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
But here we are with Fallout 4, with my ever-growing list of games that disappoint me, that just doesn't live up to the hype. Like, I don't even know where to begin with all the problems that I have with the game. But just to get this started with, let's just give a brief synopsis with the game's story. You're cryogenically frozen for 200 years until 111 when mercenaries kidnapped your son and killed your wife or husband, depending on your player choice, of course. Now you're up for justice to find out what happened to your son and to get him back. Now it's kind of like the Fallout 3 premise, but reverse. Instead of your now being your father looking for your son, instead of your son looking for your father. When I took my first steps out to the wasteland, exploring the many vast locations like Sanctuary Hills to Diamond City, and talking to the many local inhabitants to gain some information, and also getting some companions along the way, and to following the breadcrumbs to find your missing son Sean. Eventually, you need to choose a faction, which I will get to momentarily about what I don't like about them in Fallout 4, and to build yourself your very own teleporter. Then you go inside the Institute, which you're led to the mysterious figure who's in charge, which it turns out to be your son, who is an elderly man, because when they took your child from you from the beginning of the game, they left you to be frozen for another 60 years, until you're able to wake up from the cryogenic chamber and finally leave about 111. After having a long conversation with your father, he then tells you that he wants you to be the leader of the Institute because he's slowly dying. After I accepted, he then asked you to take care of the rest of the opposition forces of the Brotherhood of Steel and the Railroad. Then I go to the headquarters of the Railroad and annihilate them all. And after that, I finally go to the Brotherhood of Steel and destroy their airship, which crashes like the goddamn Hindenburg. So finally, after completing all the tasks that needs to be done, you get to speak to your final moments with your dad, who's on his deathbed, having a heart-to-heart conversation as he passes away. And that's the conclusion, which it gives you a 1-minute epilogue. And that's it. Not even 1 minute, more like 30 seconds. What kind of conclusion did I just receive? All I got was an ending that was vaguely described to me by the narrator, saying how war never changes and giving me little tidbits of information about what exactly happened in the end. Like, what happened to all the companions that are along the way? What happened to the person I romanced in the end? Or even the factions? What happened to them exactly? The Brotherhood of Steel, the Minuteman, the freaking Institute that I'm leading. Because it'd be nice, Bethesda, that they can just give me some more detail, if you don't mind. Because your guess is as good as mine about what happened to any of the stuff that happens in the end. But let's get back to the point about the factions, shall we? So basically the factions just really boil down to the Institute wants to use the synths as tools because they're nothing more than that. And there's the Brotherhood of Steel who wants to destroy all the synths because they're a threat to the Commonwealth. And then finally, there is the Railroad, who wants to protect and nurture all the synths because they're people too, you know. Well, I haven't seen sides so one-dimensional or even one-sided between the good side and the bad side since I was playing Assassin's Creed Syndicate, where the head Templar master was so cartoonishly evil, all he needed was a top hat, a monocle, laughing maniacally while tying up the innocent bystander to the rail track, all following the next clue for the next plot MacGuffin. Oh, sorry, I mean Pieces of Eden, on its dastardly plan of world domination. But hey, let's not derail this conversation any longer and talk about the abysmal writing of the stories of the recent Assassin's Creed games. That's a tale for another day. Then there's the vast amounts of side quests, or as I like to call it, bitch work, which is basically consists of me going through missions like the Minuteman and clearing an enemy base to make a new settlement, or the radical different mission of helping a Brotherhood of Steel member and to protecting them to finding some information of some sort. And here's the best bit: to clear out another enemy base. Repeat that about 40 times in a 60-hour game, and that can perfectly describe the quality of side quests that we're getting here. Note to the game industry: I see way too many developers from articles and interviews alike saying the best way to entice gamers into buying their latest AAA open world game is to give them a sheer mass amount of content they can delve into and play for hours out of end. But listen to this. Having the same regurgitated missions of climbing towers, collecting collectibles, and clearing out strongholds ad nauseum is not fun. Not even in the slightest. It's a goddamn chore to play. In my honest opinion, what constitutes a great side quest, best demonstrated in the previous Fallout games, are like the surreal missions like Oasis, where you stumble across a forest in the middle of an isolated part of the wasteland while speaking with Harwold, the tree. Then there's the fantastic Lucky Old Sun side quest, where you can help the NCR fix the Helios 1 power station, and by the end decide on which area of power you want to give to. Like you could help the NCR and redirect the power to Captain McCarran in the Vegas Strip, or you can give it to the poor settlements of New Vegas like West Side of Vermont. Or you can do what I personally thought was the best option, and find yourself that Sea Finder. Redirect all the power to the Helios 1 and turn it to a goddamn death laser, disintegrating your foes to a hot pile of ashes. What good fun that was. Let's not forget about the highly memorable side quest of Agatha's Song, where you find an elderly woman at what seems to be an abandoned shack. And after exchanging a few words with her, you're able to activate her side quest to help track down her lost heirloom of a violin. Then, following the many leads and locations, you eventually stumble across Vault 92, where you learn about the horrifying backstory about how the Overseer was doing secret experiments on the unsuspecting inhabitants of the vault, using subliminal messages to create an army of super soldiers by order of Vault Tech. Next thing in my laundry list of complaints of Fallout 4 are the companions. Now, they're not necessarily bad. Some of the more interesting ones that comes to mind are Piper, the reporter from Diamond City, or Vic Valentine, the private investigator. But I can get myself a stopwatch, and by the time you exhaust all the dollar options in 5 minutes, that what basically tells you the whole life story about where they're born, their likes and dislikes, their favorite food, and what color toothpaste they like to use. But the rest of them, I just felt completely and utter indifference towards them. Nothing really interesting about them. Most of them don't even have any type of progression or character arc or even a goddamn side quest. Most of the time I just used them as pack mules because I was too goddamn lazy to go back to my home base and dump the useless loot I gathered from killing dead super mutants. Oh, let's not forget about the fantastic performance on day 1 of Fallout 4 that was working perfectly fine and there were no problems whatsoever. Right? Right? Right?
Wrong.
Oh, what do you mean by perfectly fine performance? You mean by frame rates dropping so badly it runs like a flip book, wonky animations of NPCs, or awkward pauses when interacting with characters that you speak to?
The one good thing about being the last minute man is there's no one to argue with me when I say you're the new general. Now it's your job to make it more than an empty title.
I've heard of another settlement that's in trouble.
Here's where they are. I hope you can help them. We've got to show people that...
Yes, perfectly fine indeed. But I was playing on the PS4 version. Maybe I should have gone up the glorious PC Master Race and kept myself a high-end PC rig. But then again, getting a AAA game to run functionally on day 1, regardless of what platform of choice you choose, is like playing a nice game of Russian roulette with a Gatling gun. Because in the end of the day, you're gonna have a bad time. While also in the visual department though, it's a rather mixed bag. Look, I don't need to have ultra realistic graphics that solely focus on photorealism to be immersed in a game that I'm playing. A small development team, one that lacks the time, budget, or even size, could focus on a cool visual aesthetic that can make even the simplest games absolutely stunning to look at. But in Fallout 4's case, while the surrounding buildings and local areas in Boston are initially impressive, when it comes to the actual character models though, it's quite disappointing. Characters that are so glossy and shiny, it seems that they rub Vaseline all over their bodies, clothes that seem to be melded directly in their skin at other times. But it's not exactly showcasing that next-gen experience that I'm still awaiting for 3 years and counting. Oh, that reminds me, let's talk about the skill ports in Fallout 4 and the lack of it. You know, Fallout 1, 2, 3, and even Fallout New Vegas, how you could specialize into different types of skills and traits, like a smooth talker who uses the ability of speech to persuade people to do what you want and avoid all confrontation altogether without even raising your weapon even once to complete some of your side quests. Or even putting your points in the hacking skill where you'll be able to gain information that will otherwise be inaccessible to get. Yeah, and sure, Fallout 4 may have some of these things, but increasingly diminishing quantities of them with each new sequel to the series. Except Fallout New Vegas, that is the exception. Now swap that out with the new perk system with stars, which basically boils down to minute ways to kill enemy with gun faster, and the rest of the skills as being as useful as a gender studies degree. Enemies are still bullet sponges though, because it's always a fun time when you load a fully loaded minigun directly at their face and not even flinch. Or the fact that when you have a 99.99% chance to succeed in VATS, you seem to miss every goddamn shot. It's a bit irritating when it happens, and I know it's a bit nitpicky to complain about those minor faults, but it's still annoying when it happens. Now let me tell you what my biggest gripe with Fallout 4 is. Look, of all the grievances I had with Fallout 4 between the plot, the characters, the glitches, the ending that had no goddamn ending, none of them even come even close to my absolute frustration with the dialogue wheel. Remember the good old days, games like Planescape Torment, Vampire the Masquerade, Baldur's Gate, and other classic RPGs for the past 20 plus years or so had numerous amounts of dialogue options that were tailored suited to what that player desired, to give them true freedom of what type of person they want to be in that game world, and each subsequent playthrough being very different from the very last.
Hepbridge Farm remembers.
But I can hear the fans now. But a dialogue wheel of a voice main protagonist is infinitely more immersive than the old text-based dialogue system of having a mute avatar or a blank stare on their face when NPCs will talk to them at length without them uttering a single word. How am I supposed to build a personal connection to my main character if games don't strive for a realistic approach of actually hearing my main protagonist talking to other people? Sorry, just need to clear my throat out for a quick second. Why don't you take a seat over there? Just need to tell you something real quick. Just need to get this off my chest. Having the dialogue systems in RPGs turned to the absolute tripe in recent years. The best thing that the video game industry could come up with in the current year comes down to a smirk, a happy face, and a goddamn frown. Or in Fallout 4's case, 3 dialogue options and a sarcastic response. Whatever the frick that's supposed to mean. Did you know that the human sapien has a wide spectrum of emotions when actually conversing with human beings? The more you know. Look, there's a right way and a wrong way to make a proper sequel. The right way is by cutting the excess fat that bogged down the previous games, building upon the good aspects of the game by holding in and polishing on those core features, and by trial and error, you can make a kick-ass game. The wrong way is to have a good foundation that has the potential to be a great sequel and get a sledgehammer and destroy anything that was unique and special by corporate mandate until it's dull to a nub, all in a desperate attempt to placate a wider audience that was never in danger of being interested. I've been very negative so far in my review of Fallout 4. Let me think of something positive that I could say about the game. Well, I did enjoy the extensive customization options. It was really enjoyable building my own custom sniper rifle, included with a upgradable magazine size, changing barrels, silencers, different colors, and even naming it. Add to the fact that you could put your own jetpack on your power armor so you can fly around like the Rocketeer was immensely satisfying. You know that base building feature that Bethesda was touting in that E3 conference, and how you can build your own large communities all over the wasteland? It would have been really enjoyable if it can give me, a proper tutorial of how to use it. Things like terminals, switches, power lines, or how to put proper items in its proper location instead of looking up online. And once you figure out how to use it and get a basic grasp of it, it was okay. But I didn't play Fallout 4 for the post-apocalyptic Sims edition. I played it for Fallout, so where's my freaking Fallout? Let me put down my nostalgia goggles for a moment. Even though I have high praise for Fallout 3 in New Vegas, they had their fair share of problems, glitchy gameplay, repeatable voice actors for many of the NPCs you encounter, mediocre first-person shooting mechanics that were never great to begin with. But it made up with that with its interesting story, unique characters, and its dark humor. More than made up for its shortcomings. But come on, Bethesda! It's been 8 years since Fallout 3, and frickin' 6 years since Fallout New Vegas. All that hype and excitement came up to this? Come on, you can do better than this. Not all my games need to be ultra hardcore to be enjoyable, or harken back to the ye olden days of isometric tactics game where menu screens are like reading off a Microsoft Excel sheet. There's a game like that. It's called Wasteland 2. Go play that. Nor am I here to rage and say that Fallout 4 is an absolute abomination. That's the worst game that was ever created. That needs to be thrown to Mount Doom. There are far worse things to play. Just take a look at Steam Greenlight for Pete's sake. It's a game that's perfectly serviceable, even enjoyable in some instances. But that's the biggest crime that Fallout 4 could commit. It's just okay. Heck, I can't even say it's doing more of the same because that would mean it's doing the stuff I actually like. In conclusion, it's ultimately a forgettable experience that you will probably forget in T-minus 15 minutes. And that's such a shame to say because it's one of my most cherished game franchises of all time. In the end of the day, that's just my honest opinion. And if you don't like that, that's okay too. We're all friends here, everyone. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to rewatch the SMT Apocalypse trailer and get myself ready for more SMT because playing SMT is always fun. And I would even be happier if we got a release date for Persona 5. It's only been 2 delays and counting. But third time's the charm, right, Atlas? And if Final Fantasy 15 could have a 10-year development cycle and actually have a release date, then maybe, just maybe, it'll be able to come out this year. Fingers crossed. This is Unhelpful Contrarian. I will see you next time. When that will be, who knows?